friends, Heidi here from Rain Country. God is good all the time, and I'm here for another craft time chat, which if you're new, this is basically just a time where I can ramble about various things. Typically I will choose one set topic to talk about, but today is going to be a little different because I have several different things I want to talk about, lots smaller issues, so I figure I'll just kind of do a random rambling chat today. What I'm doing right here, again, for those of you who are new, is I'm working on a patchwork skirt that's going to go up on my store. This one is called the Chocolate Truffle Skirt. A lot of times you'll see me working on custom orders, and in between custom orders, then I just make skirts just to put directly up on the store. So that's what's happening here, and it tends to be a pretty popular one. And I'll show you a picture of one of them right here. This one's probably going to look a little bit different when it's done, because it just depends on what fabrics are available to me at the time, and sometimes I can't get all the same fabrics I got before. And but one of my favorites to use in it is this one. I love this this paisley one here. It's called Copper, and anyway, it's just fun. So yeah, and also in case you don't know, what I've got here is a treadle machine. No, I have not converted it. You can actually buy brand new treadle machines. This is a Genome, and I always have it linked in the description box down below. Don't forget to hit show more if you're interested in checking it out. The thing I like about the newer, getting a new one as opposed to the beautiful, gorgeous vintage ones, is that you get a lot more options for stitches, just like you would on your standard electric sewing machines. So it's been a great machine. It's lasted me longer than any machine I've ever had. Typically my machines would only last 2 to 3 years because I was so hard on them, because I had so many costumes and stuff I was sewing for my dance shows and working through sequins, and those would sometimes work down into the gears and wear out the gears, and once that happens, it's, you know, the machine is just, it's just better to go ahead and buy a new one than to try to replace all the parts. But I've never had to worry about this with this one. The only thing is I just have to remember to clean it out frequently. Anyway, one of the things I wanted to talk about besides that is that social media. I want to bring this up first because some people may have been used to seeing me quite a bit on Facebook, and for social media, Facebook is usually one of my favorite places to post because it's easy for me. I don't like Instagram. Sorry to you Instagram lovers. I do have an Instagram account, and I'm not going to get rid of it, but it's just the way it works. I'm not a big cell phone person. I mean, I'm not. I used to be real big into the smartphones and all that, and then I got away from it, and now I have one again only because it was really necessary for my channel to have something that had a good camera. It had a good video camera as well, because our old camera was dying, and then I noticed that the iPhones just made better videos than our old Sony dedicated camcorder. So anyway, with that in mind, I don't like being tethered to my cell phone all the time, and I'm just quicker. I find it quicker and easier to do things on the computer rather than on the cell phone. So Instagram is kind of more for smartphones, and so it's just not my cup of tea. And then what's happened with Facebook is I find, and some of you will know this, I mean, anyone who has a Facebook will get this, is Facebook can draw you in, you know, whether you mean to or not, and then you find yourself getting caught up in debates or whatever, and though sometimes I enjoy that as long as it can be done civilly, and I try to be civil, but sometimes no matter how civil you are, people take you the wrong way and get upset, and you know, and I don't like that. I don't like hurting people's feelings. I don't like making people angry. You know, even if that wasn't my intentions, it still happens. And I realize that besides it just being a time sucker, it can end up being a pretty toxic place, and it was starting to really take a toll on me. So what I've done is I've backed way off from Facebook. So other than posting in my 2 pages, I have the Rain Country Homestead page, and then I have the Rain Country Handcrafted Goods page, 2 separate pages. Other than posting things like for the store related one, I'll post things that we just recently put up on the store, and you know, for the Rain Country handcrafted goods. And then on the Rain Country Homestead, I might just post an occasional update or share a video in case you might have missed it. Just don't be offended if I don't get in there and interact. It is probably because either I'm trying to avoid getting in there and I'm not seeing your comments or your messages, or I just simply don't have time. Because that's the other thing, is Facebook has a way, you know, you go in there, I go in there to check my private messages, because I do try to keep up on the private messages, and I go in there and then your eye catches something and then you get drawn into that and like, oh, that's interesting. And then out of habit, what happens? You start scrolling, and next thing you know, you're getting all, it's like this vortex that pulls you in, and I hate that. It makes me so mad, especially with my time being so limited, and I have so many more important things I should be focusing my time on. So anyway, I've been pulling way back because of those two reasons. I hate being that dependent on something like that anyway. And here's what I found by doing that, and I've done this before, it's not the first time. Every time I do that, I find it helps me find that happiness again. Because when I start finding myself angry and unhappy and sad and depressed, it's usually something related to Facebook. And once I pull away from it, I just kind of, I'm able to find that peace and happiness again. And you know, and on top of that, it's just too much for me to try to keep up on every single social media thing that's out there. I mean, Twitter I gave up on long ago, and I've never liked Twitter either. I feel pretty much the same way about Twitter as I do about Instagram. It's just, it's too much. But here's the thing, though I am still going to be posting on the pages off and on, one place I'm going to be posting more regularly at, I always say I'm going to do this, and then I do it for a while, and then I fall back again. But we do have a Patreon account. I don't talk about it that much because we don't have it set up for the sake of promoting ourselves or for monetary gain. Initially, it was started because people were asking us to, and because they wanted a safe way to donate to us, and it was kind of like, well, I don't like to ask for donations, and but I do appreciate the people that want to do that and would prefer to have a safe place. And I still find that when it comes to that, Patreon is one of the safest places to go without, and they don't take as much of a cut as some other places do. But in return, as gratitude for the people that like to do that, I still like to post things there. And here's the deal that makes our Patreon very different from everyone else's. We don't have any private posts. We don't have any posts that are for patrons only. Everything that we put out there is public, so anybody, whether you donate $1, $5, $20, or no dollars, everybody can see whatever post we put up. So what I'm doing is trying to post more of our just little brief updates that I normally would do on Facebook. I'm trying to do that on Patreon instead. And on top of that, one of our patrons at least, she doesn't even have a Facebook, but she does have Patreon, and so that's a way I can keep her updated on the little small things that are going on that maybe I'm not going to do a video on right away or whatever. And so yeah, and so it just seems kind of fair for me to do those kinds of things there. So, you know, if you so choose, you can go find us on Patreon. I always have the link in the description box down below. If you scroll down towards the bottom, that's where all our social media links are, and so you can find that. Again, absolutely no obligation. We don't even ask. All I ask is that you just come in there and follow us. Don't donate anything unless for some reason you feel led to. We actually prefer, if people want to help us out, the thing that we prefer is that people watch our videos, share our videos, or if they're going to spend any money at all, spend it by buying whatever products you need anyway through our Amazon affiliate links, or the products that we're selling on our Etsy store. And that's, you know, that's a way you can support us and still get something in return. I always feel better about that, though I very much appreciate our patrons and their generosity. It's, you know, we do enjoy being able to give to people. And here's something I do want to explain, though, because I don't mean to make it sound like those people who have theirs locked down to patrons only are doing something wrong, because it's a lot of work involved, and some people put a lot of work into their Patreon posts. And just like YouTube, a lot of people can sit and watch YouTube for free. They don't have to pay anything, but the people that are doing the work, you know, it's a lot of work. It can be a full-time job, literally. It is for me. YouTube is a full-time job. And that doesn't account, and I've talked about this before, that doesn't account what I do put into Etsy. And that's another full-time job. And of course, neither one of those account for all the other things I've got going on around here. So anyway, enough of that. I was just trying to explain the Patreon thing, that it is open for everyone. And ours is. We're probably one of the few, if maybe the only ones that's like that. So you can set up an account. You should be able to. Sometimes I will share our Patreon posts over to Facebook, and you should be able to click on them from there and still read them without having to actually sign up for an account. It doesn't cost anything to have an account. You can sign up for an account and follow anyone you want. And some people, a lot of people, even though they might have paid posts, they have public posts. Like I know An American Homestead, they have some posts that you'd have to pay to be able to see, and then some posts that are totally public. Okay, so anyway, that's just what's going on there. So if you want to see some of our posts, you can just go check us out on Patreon or watch on the Facebook page when I occasionally share something over there. And then you can go there and then you can check out all the posts that you may have missed. And here's the deal too, is I'm going to start the written recipes I do have, the ones that I have written down, and eventually we'll make time for writing down other recipes. Those will get posted for free for everyone over at Patreon. So those who might watch the video and go, wow, I'd really like to have a written recipe, you can find that. Some of them you'll be able to find over at Patreon. Like one of them I plan to do, if I haven't done it already by the time you see this video, is I do have a video on how I make my almond fried chicken. It's my own recipe. I am planning on, I got to rewrite my recipe a little bit because I always change things all the time. And then once I do that, I plan on putting that up on Patreon for everyone to see. So that way you can just go in there and you can copy and paste it into whatever document setting you have, and then you can have it. You'll have the recipe in a written form, and that combined with the video should make it pretty easy to follow. Now, another thing I want to talk a little bit about was a garden. What's going on with the garden? No, we don't winter garden. I do have people that ask me that, but really the only way to have a decent winter garden around here would be to have a greenhouse that stayed heated throughout the winter. We're just too far north to even with a greenhouse, at least where our greenhouse is, it just doesn't stay warm enough. It's not insulated well enough all the way around and doesn't get enough sun for it to stay warm enough through the winter to grow anything. However, I don't mind that because we get so much rain here. I like having the greenhouse being open to the chickens during the winter time, because winter is when we get the most amount of rain. You know, we get an average of 120 inches of rain per year. And I know that I say this a lot for those who've been following us for a while, but for those who are new, just so you can understand, a lot of people think Seattle gets a lot of rain. They only get 50 inches of rain a year. We get 120 on average, and that's a low average for us. When I first moved here over 30 years ago, the average was 144. So it's actually dropped in the past 30 years. So anyway, because of that, I like having the chickens being able to have a somewhat bright but dry area that they can hang out, so they don't have to stay in their coop all day when it's really rainy, which they wouldn't anyway, or stay pressed up against the house or the shop where it's kind of dry. They can go in the greenhouse. They can roost on the little slats that I use to tie my tomatoes up to in the summer, and they can take their dust baths in there. It's the one place they have during the wettest part of the year that they can take a dust bath. So that's why it's not that important to me. if I do ever get to a point where I grow anything in the greenhouse, it's only going to be in pots up on a shelf where the chickens can't dig it up. So yeah, and so we might do that someday. We just have to find a way that we can keep it warm enough in there to grow something like even lettuces and stuff that don't mind a cooler area, and you know, things like that. And I might someday. But as far as the rest of the garden, one of the things I do, and it's going to be 3 weeks out from the time I'm shooting this to the time you see this, so it might be too late for you to do it. But just so you know, for next year, one of the things we really like to do is in the fall, and actually through early winter, neighbors all around us have maple trees and various other types of trees that constantly are dropping leaves all the time, lots and lots of leaves. And so we gladly take their leaves from them, and I'll pile them on as high as I can. I've so far probably put about at least 20 large garbage bags full of leaves on our garden areas. That includes in the greenhouse and in the front yard garden, backyard garden, all of the gardens get piled with leaves, because the leaves I find to be great for all of them. And what that's going to do is not only do the leaves, they provide a protective layer to the ground, because that's what happens out in nature. The leaves fall, they provide a protective layer, it covers up the seeds, and then in the spring the seeds start growing. And then of course through the winter the leaves are going to start decaying and breaking down, and then creating a nice, you know, adding nutrients to the soil. So leaves are one of my favorite things, and that works good for us here because of all the rain we get. The rain falls on the leaves, wets them down really good, and they stay in place. It's very rare, even with our high winds, that you know, by the time the high winds come, the leaves are pretty weighted down and starting to rot enough that they're not going anywhere. So that's just great. It's a free ground cover that we can get from our neighbors, and they're happy to give them to us because then they don't have to pay to take them to the dump. So that's what we do there. And then in the spring through summer, when people start mowing their lawns, if I know a person doesn't spray junk on their grass, you know, Roundup or anything like that, then I will get their grass clippings and I'll pile that on, especially where I grow the corn and the potatoes and any berries. Berries and corn and potatoes love all that high nitrogen that's in the grass when it's breaking down. So that's a really good option. And it's free, total free fertilizer, and also adds a protective layer even through the spring and summer that prevents the need to have to water much, if at all. It keeps the ground very moist. And so that's what we do then. But anyway, yeah, that's what's going on with the garden. We do still have some things growing. Like I still have the sting and nettle still growing. The kale is still growing, but the kale, I'm just letting the chickens have it. It's winter time. I'm letting them have free reign in the main garden. I've opened up the fencing to that so that they can go in there and get all the bugs and baby slugs and the eggs, and leave their droppings and till up the earth. And so they're welcome to have the kale this time of year. I've got plenty dried up and plenty other good greens, and so I'm not concerned about that. That's for them at this time of the year. And then another thing I wanted to talk about was the Patrick had to have another CDL, I think a CDL exam. I think he has to have them done every 2 years, and this time he went in there, and we've talked about this before. You know, a lot of you know we haven't been on thyroid medication for it's somewhere between 7 and 8 years. I can't remember what exactly it is. It might be 7.5. I keep thinking 8, but maybe it's only 7.5 years. Whatever. At any rate, we've been off our thyroid medication and been healthy for it. Now, we still have our thyroid glands, and we were on the synthetic stuff, which was causing a lot of joint pain. And yes, we have a video on how we did it. Again, keep in mind, it's how we did it and what worked for us. It doesn't mean, it's not going to answer every single question for every person. In fact, I did a video not too long ago about taking your health into your own hands. I can only tell you what we did. We're not doctors. We're not telling you what you should do. We can't prescribe for you any kind of herb or tell you how much of that you need. Really, it's a matter of changing. It's just a lifestyle change, you know. the type of food you eat, the type of water you drink, and so on. But anyway, so as a result, you know, he's been having his CDL exams, and a couple of the doctors will look back over his history and say, oh, I see you were on thyroid medication. How's that going? Oh, I'm not taking it, doc. One year he had a doctor get all up in arms. He got so upset that he wasn't taking his medication. Oh, you could die. I mean, like, literally. It's like, well, I feel pretty good, doc. And the funny thing was, is the nurse who had earlier been taking his blood pressure and all that stuff said, who are you, Superman? Because he's in such good health. And here the doctor's freaking out because he's not on the thyroid medication. So he demanded he get some blood work done, which they never got back to us. I mean, you think they'd at least, you know, if that was such a big scary thing, they would have got back to us. Well, what that means is no news means that there was nothing wrong. They found nothing wrong with his blood. So this time they didn't even bother with that. He went to a complete, because they're always, we keep having to find new CDL examiners because now we have none left here in our small town. So now we have to go you know, to 60 miles, 70 miles away to go find an examiner. So we went to this one and never even asked him about his thyroid, but told him he was in really good health. I mean, his blood pressure is actually on the lower side, like low, but no alarm, no concern, everything looked good. And again, they said, wow, you're in really great shape there. And so just more proof. I just like to share that because that's just more proof that I think in most people's cases that are on thyroid medication, not everyone, because some people don't have a thyroid at all because they've had it removed or they had cancer, they had to have it removed, or the doctor just told them it needed to come out when it probably didn't. And I get that. Sometimes, you know, you do have to be on some sort of replacement. And if that's you, I recommend looking into the natural thyroid, but do whatever you can to get away from the synthetic stuff, because that's the stuff that's really going to take a toll on your health. But if you still have your thyroid gland, I think it's possible for most people to heal it and get off the medication. But we're all going to be unique. And remember, thyroid problems, a sluggish thyroid is usually a sign of an underlying disorder rather than it being the thyroid itself. And if your doctor is still using the same old lame test checking your TSH levels, I mean, that's kind of like Dark Ages medicine by now. They should know better, but TSH levels aren't going to say anything about how productive your thyroid is. And I think it's just pretty much criminal that they prescribe medication based on that. It makes me angry. So it's like they need to at least update their tests. But anyway, but even with the other tests, I still think people can simply just change their diet, change what they do, get more exercise, just doing, you know, we've always been pretty active people and got a lot of exercise. But it was about finding the things that were causing the issues with our thyroid, such as the fluoride in the water, because that was one of the biggies for us, was getting rid of the fluoridated water. So anyway, you can go watch our videos on how we took ourselves off the thyroid medication, and the other one I talked about taking your health into your own hands, if you want to learn more about that. I just wanted to share that little testimonial again, because yet again, another shining example of how we were able to get off the thyroid medication, and he's still getting great marks on his CDL exams. Oh, and if you don't know what a CDL exam is for, it's for the certified driver's license for driving bigger trucks, you know, because Pat has a dump truck, and so, you know, it's a big rigmarole out here to get your CDL in the first place, and if you don't keep up on it on your exams, you know, every 2 years, then if you don't get those done, they can actually take your CDL away from you, which again I think is stupid, but whatever. That's just the way I feel about most government agencies that, you know, try to control your life. Okay, well, I think that was all. I just wanted to talk about a few of those little things and just share with you what was going on around here. And if you like this kind of video, it's basically like a craft time chat form of the this and that, but just talking about topics rather than showing various things that I do and make and how to do it and experiments that I'm doing, which is what my this and that videos are. But anyway, if you like this, I might try to do more of these. They're not going to be weekly, but But maybe every so often, maybe once a month, have a rambling chat that just kind of talks about some of the updates, what's happening in the garden, the chickens, the family, and so on and so forth. Well, I hope you enjoyed this video. Thanks for watching. Take care, and God bless.